India needs to declare war on Pakistan and end that problem once and for all. This is what I read on Twitter not once but more than 1,000 times over the past week. Currently, Indians aren't scared of the prospect of war. They're celebrating it, cheering for it, and asking the government to bless them with it. They are actually of the belief that a full-scale war with Pakistan would make their problems go away. And there is some data to corroborate this. Back in 2019, when Pakistani terrorists attacked Pulwama in India, 36% of Indians believed that a full-scale war was the answer. I'm pretty sure given the sentiment right now, this number would be even higher if a similar survey is conducted. Now, let me give you a truth bomb that you may not like. It's absolutely stupid to desire for war because there is unreal levels of fraud going on around you. Why? Because they benefit money-wise and power-wise while you and I die poor. And by the end of this video, I would have proven this with the help of data and evidence. Now, for the uninitiated, let me give you some context about India and Pakistan in extremely simple and short term in probably less than 20 seconds. This land back in the day used to be ruled by a king, and when both these nations gained independence, they tried convincing this king to join their side. The king decided to side with India, so legally it became India's land and India put its army there. In retaliation, Pakistan organized, funded, trained and harbored terrorists in order to destabilize India. Now, some people might think this is propaganda because I use the word terrorist, but if you happen to be one of those people, just pause the screen and read about all of these attacks. They took more than 1,000 lives and were directly or indirectly supported by the Pakistani government, and there is surmounting evidence to prove this. Now, I assure you, it's a lot more complicated than this, and I've made an entire video explaining the whole story. If you'd like more context, feel free to watch it. But getting back to why Indians want war, why is there that specific emotion? Are they that stupid? Well, to tell you the truth, they're just frustrated. Every couple of years, some twat from Pakistan enters India, kills a bunch of people, and when India retaliates, it faces global backlash and is called a warmongering military state. As a result, many people are feeling the emotion of wanting to get done with it once and for all. Now, whether it is justified is for you to decide, but I can tell you how stupid it is with the help of data. Now, realistically, you probably know that India would win a full-scale war if there even was one, because naturally, India's defense budget is 7 times larger than that of Pakistan. Plus, Pakistan wouldn't dare use nuclear weapons because India also has nuclear weapons, and that would only mean both the countries getting wiped off the world map. But we are missing something. Firstly, there are a lot of entities that benefit from this kind of a conflict. And secondly, the actual direct and indirect cost on both you and I would be tremendous even if we fight a war with Pakistan and win. Let's break this down systematically and start by looking at the entities that benefit from war. You know how we do it. Let's look at some data. In 2025, India announced a defense budget of $86 billion, almost 10% up from the previous year, to operate and maintain the second largest armed force in the entire world. 21% of this entire defense budget would be used purely for capital acquisition, meaning buying new weapons or modernizing existing ones. As a result, Indian defense companies would be having a field day because the government is buying billions of dollars of weapons from them. Except they aren't the ones selling. But wait, didn't the defense ministry say that 65% of all our weapons are manufactured in-house? Well, that was kind of a lie. More on that later. When you investigate India's defense spending further, you see a scary pattern. All these countries that are clamoring for peace and want India and Pakistan to de-escalate, they secretly want us to keep having this war because they're the ones that sell us the weapons. Now, what I'm about to tell you is very disturbing, but before I do that, if you learned something new up until this point, please consider subscribing to the channel, as that's what keeps us extremely motivated. And you don't see that because you believe that bombing our neighboring nation would solve all our problems, but look at this report by the Stockholm International Peace Research Institution. 28% of all of France's weapon exports were to India. 34% of all Israel's weapon exports were to India. 38% of all of Russia's weapon exports were to India. India was the largest weapon importer for these three nations. I'll break this down for Pakistan as well, but all of this made India the second largest weapon importer in the entire world, accounting for almost 10% of the entire world's weapon imports between 2019 and 2023. This number grew nearly 100% compared to the previous 4-year period. India currently operates 36 Rafale jets which were purchased from France 9 years ago. Currently, they signed a contract in April 2025 to obtain 26 more. Do you know what France said with respect to this India-Pakistan conflict? We urge both countries to remain calm and not escalate the situation further. brother, you're the one who sold us the weapons to help us escalate in the first place. Now, India did this in the first place because it lacks a military industry complex, meaning the capability to develop weapon systems in-house. But wait, didn't that Defense Ministry press release say that 65% of Indian weapon systems are manufactured in-house? Well, not really. Most of this manufacturing happens via knowledge transfer agreements from these same exporter nations. Meaning all the technology and equipment is still theirs, but we're just paying them for the tech and we're manufacturing all of that locally. Kind of like buying a Lego set. You buy the very expensive Lego set, open it, look at the instructions, and then build it and get the satisfaction that you made that yourself. Pakistan is no different, by the way. If you compare the two time periods in that country between 2015 and 2019 and 2020 and 2024, their overall arms imports grew 61% and 81% of them came entirely from China. And when in 2025 India and Pakistan got into yet another conflict, the Chinese government said that both the countries need to exercise restraint and de-escalate. Now you might be wondering, well, what's the big deal? Both these countries are buying weapons from other nations in order to protect their people. We are just trying to avoid more violence. Okay, let me burst your bubble again. We are faced with the disastrous consequences of buying weapons from other nations. Weapon sales create strategic dependencies for exporting countries, wherein importing countries like India and Pakistan see their own defense capabilities crippled. For example, back in the 1980s, Pakistan purchased a set of F-16 fighter jets from the US. This was done to incentivize Pakistan to fight alongside the US against the Soviet Union in Afghanistan. However, the Soviet Union was defeated and as a result this incentive went away. And then Pakistan developed their own nuclear program, so US slapped sanctions on them and blocked the sale of these F-16. Pakistan paid for them but never received them. And then after 9/11, when the US declared war on Al-Qaeda, Pakistan again became strategically important to them and finally they released these F-16 jets. But subject to a lot of terms and conditions like frequent inspection by US authorities and prohibition to use it outside of Pakistan. Similarly, for India, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited manufactures most of our MiG and Su-30 jets, which are Russian made. However, Russia still retains monopoly on certain spare parts. So God forbid, if India's relationship spoils with Russia tomorrow, maintaining our jets would become a challenge. Which is exactly why every single arms exporting country loves it when a war breaks out, because it comes with two amazing benefits. First is obviously the money. In fact, at the time of filming this video, a headline broke that India ordered more S-400 defense systems from Russia. Moscow's bank accounts are having a field day. And the second benefit is even bigger. All these exporting nations use these weapons deals in order to influence the military and intelligence operations of the importing country. And by the way, the economic cost of this is disastrous. It's paid for by common folk like you and me. Not only do we give up control over our own military operations, we are also paying significantly higher in the form of taxes and inflation. Given our military's current size, a full-scale war would easily add an additional $10 billion to our annual budget, not to mention the damage that it would cause. Rebuilding all of that would also not be free. The taxpayer would bear this burden. Not only that, a war would also greatly disrupt trade, tourism, and investment. No investor wants to do business with a country that is torn by war. Look at what happened with Afghanistan. Over the past 25 years, war destroyed all its important institutions, hospitals, roads, and many of these were never even rebuilt. In fact, the country is currently under terrorist rule, and even after all these years, nearly 22 million people still require aid in that country. That is what war does. That is what you are wishing for, and all these other countries are profiting from. But wait, we are India. We are Vishwagurus. We would rebuild after war like Japan and the US did. Do you think that's free? Rebuilding is also paid for by people like you and me. And common sense would tell us that rebuilding a house costs more than maintaining it. Look at what happened with the US during World War I. The highest tax bracket before the war was 7%. After the war, 77%. After World War II, this became 98%. We're currently living in times where the US slapped 145% tariffs on Chinese imports. However, the tariffs on Indian imports were just 26%. As a result, many American companies were considered shifting manufacturing from China to India. Even heavyweights like Apple were considering this, but before any concrete plans were announced, the war broke out. Doesn't this timing seem a little bit suspicious to you? This clearly points towards who could be the ultimate beneficiary for an India-Pakistan war. Not only does a nation like China gain from selling weapons to Pakistan, it also gains from taking away business, trade and investment from India. And all of this sets us up for even more misery. We are currently spending a ton of money on military and we might spend more if the war situation gets worse. This is money that could be used towards healthcare and education. And now many people want to deal with the Pakistan problem once and for all. And to them I raise a simple solution. You could simply wait. Pakistan is one of the poorest countries in the world on the brink of collapse. They've had 28 bailouts over the past 35 years where they borrowed money to save their economy. To them, terrorism is a cost-effective way to rile India up and then use India's retaliation as justification to increase their own defense spending. Keep in mind, during these 35 years, with those 28 bailouts, Pakistan's military spending grew 4 times. It's common knowledge that in Pakistan, the army is the actual seat of power and not the parliament. It's also common knowledge that you don't get very far with such a setup. India has incredible defense capabilities to defend itself and absolutely zero need to solve the Pakistan problem because Pakistan is solving the Pakistan problem. What you need to realize, however, is that statements like "in war there are no winners" are absolute lies. In war there are many winners, like defense companies, developed weapon exporting nations, deep states like Pakistan's military. You want a war to make the enemy pay for their sins, but you need to realize that it's you and I that pay, not for the sins, but for the expenses incurred to make someone else pay for these sins. And that is what kills us before the sins kill them. If you learned something new, subscribe to the channel.